All right. So today we're joined by Mr. Andy Burstein. Andy is the co-founder and CEO of Accessible Pharmacy. Accessible Pharmacy Services is a home delivery pharmacy service and healthcare company that specializes in patients who are blind and low vision. They're the only provider of its kind in the world and the largest blind-owned healthcare company in America. Their model helps merge healthcare and accessibility and empowers patients to live healthier lives while managing their medication and diabetes with greater independence. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Andy. Andy, the floor is yours.
All right. Hey, Sean, thank you so much. That was a great introduction. Um, Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Happy New Year. I'm here right now, I'm in Center City, Philadelphia, for those of you who are familiar with Philly. I used to live in DC. I went to George Washington University. And so I love DC. I'm familiar with DC. And it's great to virtually, like this, connect back to DC. So thanks again. So to build upon Sean's introduction, what I figured I could do is share a little bit of background about how we got started as a company, let you know about the things that we currently do that make us unique, and share some of the things that we're working on for 2024. So, the background of our company, we're a relatively new company. We're approaching our 4-year anniversary. The idea started about 6 years ago. And the background is at the time I was running a healthcare marketing firm, and we were developing strategies around accessibility in general, like understanding accessibility on websites through consumer communication. And the goal was to help our clients with accessibility. Our clients were healthcare systems, physician offices, the pharmaceutical industry, the veterinary industry, etc. And there was a guy who I knew from Little League. Our kids used to play ball together. His name is Alex, and Alex is blind. So I was like, oh, I'm going to reach out to that guy from Little League and see if he wants to meet up. I'll pick his brain a little bit. Maybe I can learn little bit about his experience in the marketplace. And so we met up for a cup of coffee, and I didn't know too much about him. Our kids are friendly. We live near each other in Philly. He was a really nice guy, and he's blind. That's literally all I knew. So we got together, and I got to hear Alex's story. Alex was diagnosed with a degenerative retinal condition called retinitis pigmentosa in his late teens. He went to college at UNLV in Las Vegas. He wanted to be in the hospitality industry. So he was going to school in Las Vegas, and he was learning from he was working part-time in the casinos and the resorts and the hotels. But by the time he graduated college, he moved back to Philadelphia. He got a job as an assistant general manager of a hotel in Philadelphia, but realized that his eyesight was deteriorating very rapidly, and came to terms with the fact that there weren't too many opportunities for blind hotel managers. And so he went back to school. He got an MBA, and he ultimately earned a PhD from Drexel University in Philadelphia. And he wrote his doctoral dissertation on the consumer experience for blind consumers in America. And within it, there was a whole section on healthcare. And so here I am thinking, like, oh, whatever, we'll hang out, I'll learn a little bit. Alex is arguably the foremost expert in the consumer experience in retail and just the marketplace in general for individuals who are blind or have low vision. And so this one-time cup of coffee became a pretty regular occurrence, and we would brainstorm ideas and then reconcile those ideas with his research and his own experience. And we decided to write a business plan. This is like 2019, writing a business plan with the concept of what would it be like if we wrote a business plan that created an accessible experience in healthcare for individuals who are blind and have low vision. And so this was pre-pandemic, 2019. So we held some focus groups in Philadelphia with blind and low vision adults. We got in our car and drove down to Baltimore and spent a day at the NFB headquarters and got feedback from some of their executives. We had some friends in the ACB in Philadelphia who gave us some support. Alex was very active in the foundation fighting blindness. He was doing some research studies with them, so we got a lot of feedback and support from them. And we ultimately launched our company in April 2020, like almost like the same day the pandemic kicked off. We started our company. And we all at the time we were like, oh, it's like the flu; it'll be over in a few weeks. But we all know what transpired. But we plowed forward, and fast forward to today, we now operate in 29 states, as well as Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. We have about 65 employees. 25% of our staff are blind themselves, and we're growing. And what's cool about our growth is our growth comes a few different ways. We're growing geographically. We're moving into new markets. We're getting licensed in other states. We learn from our patients every day. So our patients not only are beneficiaries of our service, but they also give us, they're almost like an extended market research team for us. They're constantly giving us feedback about new solutions that exist in the marketplace, what other healthcare companies are doing to be more accessible, new apps, new educational models, new organizations, new resources. And so our patients are helping us build our business. And finally, what's really interesting is that the model of our company, which is based upon like one-on-one personalized healthcare, like working with an individual and figuring out what does it take to empower this individual to manage their medication more independently, manage their diabetes more independently, and live healthier lives. We're able to do those things. And because we're able to do that in the way that we do it, we're now growing in, we have patients in the deaf community, patients with intellectual and cognitive disabilities, patients with spinal cord injuries, refugees and asylum seekers. And it's like the common denominator of each of these groups are that they each have their own barrier to access to healthcare. And so as a company, what we focus on is really just, that what I said, working with that individual and getting them into a better space. So what do we do? What is it that makes us accessible? And what do? We deliver to people's homes prescription medication, over-the-counter medication, vitamins and supplements, small accessible medical devices, everything in the diabetes space, glucometers, continuous glucose monitoring systems, syringes, etc. What makes us unique is how we wrap accessibility around it. Everything that we do that makes us accessible, there's no charge for. We get reimbursed by insurance companies. In some states, we get support from the Department of Aging, the Department of Health. We get some support from the Center for Disease Control. And so there's no burden on a patient to join us as a patient. And so what do I mean by wrapping what we do around accessibility? All right, so I'll give you a few examples. We provide accessible support. And what does that mean? It all starts with a phone call to us. Rather than go the traditional model where you go into a physician's office and the physician just sends the medication over. That will happen at a point in the future, but we have to have a conversation with the patient first. We need to understand who is the individual and what are your personal challenges with medication management and diabetes management. So we'll ask some questions. We'll capture your insurance information. We will get some insight. We'll learn about what medications you're taking, what vitamins you're taking, what supplements you're taking. We'll get your physician information. And then we go to work. It takes us about a day. We'll contact your insurance company to confirm eligibility. We will reach out to your prescribers and let them know that we may be working with you. We will have our pharmacists review all the medication you're taking. And that's really important. Why that becomes really important is that we find that quite often people are taking prescription medications from multiple prescribers, and they're also taking fish oil, and they're taking a multivitamin, and they're taking aspirin. And a combination of all of these things together can quite often cause unintended side effects and can impact the body's ability to absorb those medications properly. So we'll work with your prescribers to adjust your medication. Assuming that all works, we'll call you back and then we can get started. What do I mean by getting started? We'll identify, I'll give you an example. We have a whole collection of free accessible packaging. So for example, we have different size and shape bottles. We have small bottles with childproof lids. We have large oversized bottles with pop-off lids that may benefit someone with Parkinson's or arthritis. We have pre-sorted disposable pill organizers. So rather than you getting all your meds and organizing it yourself, we can send it to you pre-organized. And we can mix in there prescription medication, over-the-counter medication, vitamins and supplements. We have individual daily packets, which are basically 2-inch by 2-inch plastic baggies that get pre-sorted with your meds. That's how actually I take my meds. It's the same machine that Amazon has for PillPack, for those of you who are familiar with PillPack. And we're working on more projects. We're actually working on a program with Temple University's Disability Studies program to develop medication packaging for people with spinal cord injuries. In addition, we have a whole collection of accessible labeling. What do I mean by accessible labeling? We have traditional text labels, and we can do that in about 200 different languages. We have large font labels for those who would benefit from large fonts with different color contrast backgrounds for those who would benefit from, we have black backgrounds and white backgrounds and alternate text. We have a whole collection of talking labels that can actually read medication information out loud. And we embrace solutions that are in the marketplace. We have no preference towards any of these solutions. It's all about what works best for the patient. So we have some of our own solutions. We work closely with ScripTalk. We work closely with the WayTag labels from WayAround. And so we can put any of those labels and package, on any of the packaging I just mentioned. We have a full range of diabetes supplies, insulin. We're able to deliver controlled substances, substances that require refrigeration. And it's automatic. It just shows up on your front door every month. And we'll let you know in advance if something needs to be renewed so there's not a fire drill with like one pill left. Some other things that we do. We are the healthcare partner for Be My Eyes. So for those of you who use Be My Eyes, you can use Be My Eyes to have that initial conversation with us. But we also support patients in the blind and low vision community with pill identification, label reading. We help people do home COVID tests. We help women who are blind do home pregnancy tests. So we use Be My Eyes. I mentioned earlier, we're working in the deaf community as well. Everyone in our company is very proficient and comfortable communicating through VRS. So for those of you who aren't familiar with VRS, it stands for Video Relay Services. And it's essentially, it's on-demand sign language interpreters. It's a federally funded program. And so, for example, if I were deaf and I wanted to get in touch with Sean, I, either using a smartphone or a tablet computer or a camera on my computer, would contact one of these operators. I would sign to them, and they would call Sean on the phone and say, hey, Sean, this is operator X. I have Andy on the other line with me. He's deaf. He's going to be signing to me, and I'll be interpreting between the two of you. And it makes for a very fluent conversation. It's a free service provided by the federal government for the deaf and hard of hearing community. So there's that. We also run a whole collection of educational programs throughout the year. And they're all archived on our website, by the way. Our website is accessiblepharmacy.com. It's a screen reader friendly website. It has large fonts. An example of some of our educational programs are, we run a whole collection of diabetes related programs. Usually we run programs with the Diabetes Education Center at the University of Pennsylvania. In the last year, we ran programs focused on blindness and mental health, which that was actually our biggest webinar. We had 1,900 people register for that program. And our speakers ranged from, we had our chief medical officer speak about medication related to mental health. We had someone from the 988 hotline, which used to be the suicide prevention hotline. But during the pandemic, the federal government expanded it to provide a national network of social workers to provide all mental health services for free. So it's simply, rather than dialing 911 for an emergency, you dial 988 and you'll get connected to a social worker. We had someone from Rutgers University's Eye to Eye program, which is essentially a peer-to-peer support group where there's blind and low vision volunteers who make themselves available to speak to other people who are experiencing vision loss. We had someone from the American Council of the Blinds, the chairwoman, Pam Shaw. She's the chairwoman of the Mental Health Committee. And finally, we had a woman, a really dynamic woman from Philadelphia. She runs a very large therapy practice. She's blind herself. And she spoke about just, mental health 101, advocating for yourself as a blind patient in a therapy session, and so on and so forth. Other programs are, we ran a breast cancer program that focused on creating, one of the big takeaways from it was a meticulous explanation for a woman who was blind about how to do a self-exam. We ran a program last year on clinical trials with the National Institutes of Health, the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and a venue that actually hosts clinical trials. We've run programs on eye drop administration, like different strategies for getting eye drops in your eyes if you're taking prescription eye drops. We did that with the Chicago Lighthouse, and so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of them on our website. We also ran, this is the second year in a row, we ran the virtual Blind Health Expo, where we had over 100 exhibitors and thousands of attendees, where consumers and healthcare providers and government agencies can learn about resources and solutions that exist in the blind and low vision community. And we're growing. We have a bunch of other things lined up this year. We're going to be doing some more things with Be My Eyes. We're looking to actually build upon the success of the mental health webinar to actually build a standalone event to really make all of the solutions that exist in the blind and low vision community and general population around mental health available to the population here. Let me see a few other things, three other things. One of the more exciting things that happened to us in 2023, and we're expanding it in 2024, the Center for Disease Control gave us a grant to train 3 people from our staff, 2 who are blind, 1 who is deaf, to teach online diabetes education programs. Right now we have a pre-diabetes program, and in this late spring, we're going to be doing a diabetes support group. It's an awesome program. Right now, the CDC has us focusing in Pennsylvania and Delaware. Our hope is this summer, we're going to be expanding it to New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Maryland, and DC. So Sean is on my short list of people to call once we get approved there. So we have these 2 women who are blind who are doing it. We have our first cohort that's going to be taught in sign language in February. We're pretty excited about that. We run an internship program. This will be our 3rd year in a row, where we hire, it's a paid internship program for blind college students who want to pursue careers in healthcare. And it's a great program. It's a great opportunity for these students to get experience with the stuff that we do. And it's mutually beneficial. We get great work from these students, and we learn a great deal from them. Finally, we've won a collection of awards. And it's not like we need awards, but it is pretty cool to be acknowledged by groups in the community for the work that we do. So we won the Federal Government's Award through the FCC, their Advancement in Accessibility Award. This last summer, we won the National Federation of the Blind's Dr. Jacob Bolotin Award. We've won the Helen Keller National Center Award for the work that we do in the deaf-blind community. We won the Henry Viscardi Award for our work in just disability healthcare. And so, like I said, it was pretty cool. And finally, there's a cool article written about us in the New York Times. And it's not like, it's a little old at this point. It's about 2.5 years old, but there's still a pretty big thrill about, like, obviously, as you all can tell, like, I love telling our story. We all love telling our story. But hearing a New York Times level journalist like tell our story back to us was pretty cool. So if you just Google accessible pharmacy New York Times, it's the first thing that pops up. All right, so Sean, I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna stop talking for a little bit. I'd love to hear questions from people or thoughts. If anyone has a question that you're not comfortable sharing on a call like this, because it's a personal healthcare issue, please feel free to email me personally. My email is Andy, ANDY, at accessiblepharmacy.com. I'm not a healthcare provider, so I'll pass it on to our healthcare team if it's a healthcare question. But if you have any other question, please feel free to reach out to me. You can always call. You can find our website at accessiblepharmacy.com. You can ask that woman. I'll spell her name. I'm not going to say her name so I don't activate everyone's phones. SIRI. If you ask her to call Accessible Pharmacy, she'll put you through. If you ask ALEXA to call Accessible Pharmacy, she'll put you through. And you can also find us on Be My Eyes in the specialized help section. So Sean, thank you again for including me today. And thank you everyone for taking out time to listen to hear what I have to say. I appreciate you and thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And for those of you who have a question, to unmute yourself, there's an option at the bottom left of your screen that looks like a microphone you can select. Alternatively, you can press the Alt plus the letter A button. If you're on the phone, it's *6. And while people are doing that, Andy, is there an additional cost to this service?
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you asked that question. There is no additional cost to this service. There's free support, there's free education, free delivery, free packaging, and free labeling. The only cost that would occur is that if there's a cost for something that your insurance company does not cover, or if there's a copay. And copays are, I didn't know this before I got in the industry. I thought copays were just something that the pharmacy or the doctor decided to just charge. They're actually dollar amounts dictated by insurance companies, but those are the only costs.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Looks like Mrs.
Olga, you are unmuted.
Mrs. Miglio, you unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
I did, and thank you, Andy. This is
Hey, how are
Cheryl.
you? Hey, Cheryl.
I am intrigued by your explanation and your success,
Thank you.
and I'm new, not to low vision. I was low vision, but I'm new to needing accessible pharmacy services.
Okay.
So recently, through my little local support friends, our group with um, Andy, with Sean,
Okay.
I have reached out to my local pharmacy and asked for ScripTalk.
Okay.
So, you know, timing being what it is, I am in the process of waiting for them to put me into their Envision version, ScripTalk. And
Mm-hmm.
now I find out that you have a company doing either the same or better, perhaps. How do I measure one against the other, or is it just a matter of convenience and people you might know, or
I
since
think
they'll both be
no, you
free?
hit the nail on the head. How about this? At the end of the day, if you have a really good relationship with your pharmacy and your pharmacist, you should stay there. You know, we exist because most people don't have a great relationship with their pharmacist, specifically individuals in the blind and low vision community. So we would love to work with you. I would argue, since you've already started walking down the path of your pharmacy, see if they're able to support you. If not, call us. We would love to support you. We are ScripTalk's largest single user of ScripTalk, the Envision America team. There are some bigger companies that have multiple locations, like a lot of retail locations, but as a single location, as a single provider of ScripTalk, we are the largest. So I hope that answered your question. Um, but like I said, I would argue walk down the path of your pharmacy. If you hit a brick wall or you're not feeling you're getting the support that you need, please call us. We'd love to work with you.
Okay, so it's just a matter of keep what's working, and if it's not working, reassess.
Yeah, exactly. If they're able to support you and you're able to help manage your medication properly, like that's the goal. So if it's working, you know, like I said, I'd love to work with you, but if it's working, don't change it. If you're not feeling you're getting that support or they're not able to get you to ScripTalk regularly, just let us know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. It looks like Rachel, you have your hand raised. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, so first of all, thank you for
Lower
being
hand.
here.
Hey, Rachel.
Hey, I work with Sean as one of the resource navigators
Raise
in
hand.
the resource center, and we have some of your samples, which is great.
Oh, great. Very cool.
And I had a couple questions, one of which has already been answered, which is cost. My second question is related to medications like antibiotics, or something. The service makes perfect sense for maintenance drugs, things you're taking on a regular basis. So the question is, how would you handle a one-time medication that's somewhat time sensitive? So, I go to the doctor, I have an infection, I need an antibiotic. How is
No,
that?
no. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to give you two examples. And you sort of hit the nail on the head. We are a great resource for chronic medication needs and ongoing medication needs. The two examples are the following. About a year ago, I woke up in the morning and I had strep throat. I knew it was strep throat because I've had strep throat before in my life. I know exactly what it feels like. I called my doctor's office and quickly hopped on a telehealth call with my doctor. And at 8:30, she confirmed, if you want to come in, we can do the strep test, but I believe what you're saying is correct based upon your symptoms. If you want, I can get you an antibiotic. And so I had a few options. I could have hopped in my car and driven to I own a pharmacy. I could have hopped in my car and driven to the suburbs where our distribution center is and picked up my medication. I didn't have the energy for that. I could have had a medical courier bring me my medication later that afternoon, which would have cost like a mortgage payment, right? I could have had it overnighted and had it show up to me the first thing the next morning, which is a partial mortgage payment, but it's fine. Or the final thing was I live 3 blocks from a CVS.
Right.
Okay. And so once being that I'm under the care of our pharmacists, like my pharmacists, I called the pharmacy and we talked about those options. And I was like, listen, I want to get this medication, the first dose of this antibiotic in my stomach as fast as possible. So they said, how about this? You sit back. We will call that local pharmacy. We'll send them the prescription. We'll coordinate the billing with them. In a half hour, go pick it up, which they did. And by 9:30, I took my first dose because I walked over to the CVS. And so the punchline of that long-winded story is once you're under the care of us, we'll work with you to figure out the best solution.
Okay. And
The second example, on a weekly basis, we get calls from people who are like, oh, I'm in Miami for this weekend for a wedding and I forgot my meds. What do I do? And all those same options are the same. We could overnight the medication to the hotel, or we could try to help, find a local pharmacy near that hotel and coordinate a pickup.
And the other thing I just wanted to add with relation to the last question, because I've kind of tried to use some of the ScripTalk and myself over the years to kind of test it. And unless it has changed, what I have discovered is, anybody can get the ScripTalk machine or put the app on their phone. It's completely free to the patient.
Okay.
But what I did discover was I was told by local pharmacies that the machine to create the labels is expensive. So where Envision is making their profit is selling the machines to the pharmacies. So in answer to the question of the previous question is what I have found is if your local pharmacy that you go to has a machine, it's great. If it doesn't have a machine, they sometimes say, okay, we can do it, but then we're going to courier your medicine because we have one machine in the regional area that then does all of the prescriptions. So that's where the trick becomes. So just throwing that.
You're right. So how about this? God bless Envision America. They're a great company. They've been pioneers in this space. They were doing this for 20 years, right? We buy the machine from them. We pay a licensing fee for the technology, and we actually buy the labels themselves. We do not get reimbursed any extra money from the insurance companies for that. We absorb those costs. And so for a local small pharmacy, it's an expense if they only have one patient who benefits from that service. So yeah, what you just touched on was like, a regional pharmacy may have one machine for all their regional locations. But yeah, for a small local pharmacy, it's a very big investment. If they only have 1 or 2 patients using the service, it doesn't really pay for itself.
Okay. Right. Joe, you had unmuted. Do you have a question?
Yes. Very interesting presentation.
Hey, Joe. Thanks.
Yeah, similar. I work with Sean also as a low vision resource navigator, and yeah, definitely a fair amount of our clients are interested. I guess 2 things. Just to kind of verify on your business model. So the way you guys do get compensated, I imagine, do you have like you mentioned a few like grants that you've gotten from states and
so also, the majority of our money comes from insurance companies.
Right.
In Pennsylvania, Sean and I were speaking about this before we went live on the call today.
Right.
A lot of states have prescription assistance programs. Like in Pennsylvania, for example, the Department of Aging has a program that's funded by the Pennsylvania Lottery.
Okay.
It's a very cumbersome process to get set up with them, but there are about 200,000 Pennsylvanians who are enrolled in the program. And so we get support from them periodically. The Center for Disease Control pays for grants to train our staff to provide diabetes education, essentially. That's where that money comes from. But we're also in the process now of trying to set up a nonprofit organization that can help us realize some additional funds. We've actually been approached by a lot of foundations who are like, hey, we'd like to support you, but we can't give it to you because we're a for-profit company. So it's going to be setting up a nonprofit division to be able to get some funds so that we can support patients who
Mhm.
do need additional support. One example for that is we're able to add braille labels to all of our medication packages, but we're limited to the amount of braille that we can provide. It costs money. You know, every line costs money. We'd love to be able to expand our braille solutions, and that's one of the areas where we would invest some of the nonprofit money into to be able to expand our braille services.
Okay. And I guess the other part of it, I did find very intriguing what you offered last fall with the mental health and vision. I thought that was very unique. It sounded like you might be expanding upon it in 2024. Do you have any details on that yet?
Yeah, so I'll let the cat out of the bag now. It's still
Okay.
very loose. We're going to be
Oh,
actually hosting in the summer what we're
okay.
going to call the Blindness and Mental Health Summit.
Hmm.
That was the brand name we came up with last week. And it's
Okay.
essentially what we're going to have is we're looking to have between 15 and 20 speakers. It's going to be a virtual day-long event
Yes.
that have different individuals that touch blindness and mental health, you know,
Mhm.
in different facets. We're also going to have a virtual exhibit hall connected to that,
Okay.
where individuals, healthcare providers, groups like yours can come and learn from the resources that exist in this space
Right.
for that. We'd like to also be in a position to start to offer mental health services. We're just trying to figure out how to do it where we can do it well,
Right.
do it where we can afford it to do it,
Right.
and do it where it really creates value to the patients we touch. So that's one of the things we'd like to try to figure out in 2024. We're just not there yet.
Okay, that's great because we kind of get involved some with like resource support. We don't do mental health, obviously, but it is a very important piece of the greater community. So thank you.
You know, I had a great conversation yesterday. If you want, I can make an introduction for you from the
Mhm.
team at the Massachusetts Association for the Blind.
Oh,
MAPB.
MAB.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll reach out to you later because I am familiar with that.
Okay,
They're
they
bringing.
actually offer mental health services, and they were telling me that it's booming. Um,
Interesting.
so I don't know what booming means. You know, they could have gone from one
Okay.
patient to 3 patients, and they think it's booming. I don't know. Um, but
Okay.
you know, it's something that they're looking to invest greater resources in this year because they feel that there's the need. So there may be a model there that you can embrace as well. But we can connect offline about that.
Right. Thank you, Joe. Janice, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes. Hi, Andy. Back to the
Hey,
conversation.
Janice.
Hi. Back to the conversation about infrequent use. So I'm not a regular prescription taker, but once in a while I might have something.
Okay.
And I got the ScripTalk the equipment, and
Oh, good.
it was painful getting CVS to, put the labels on. I mean, it was truly painful when I had a prescription, because I'm not a regular user,
No, I
and I
know.
hear,
You know what's really interesting about CVS? Of all the big pharmacy chains, we tend to find that CVS is arguably one of the more progressive ones. Um, but you're right. It's especially when you're dealing with a single branch, they have 10,000 locations. So
right.
even though the corporate office is all about supporting this, um, that person behind the counter at the local branch, more often than not, they have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly, exactly. So, and I hear you saying that you can support patients who have infrequent prescriptions, but should we establish a relationship with you prior to needing it, or like, because when a doctor sends over a prescription, should we have already established the relationship with you, or would we do it at that time and call you and say, hey, I have this
How about this?
prescription?
That's a really good question. When you're ready, call us. We'll jump on the phone and we'll figure out what the best approach is to get you your meds.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well,
And
once
one
again,
other
if
question.
anyone hangs, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Janice.
Oh, I was going to say, and where did you say this mental health event will be held?
Oh, it's virtual in cyberspace.
Oh,
So,
virtual. Oh, great. Perfect.
yeah, I'll share the information with Sean so that he can share with everyone there.
Perfect.
Cool. I was about to say, if we hang up this and anyone's like, oh, I had another question for Andy, please feel free to email me. It's andy@accessiblepharmacy.com.
All right. right. Any other questions? Andy, this has been great so far. Could you give an example of what are the most common asks for the visually impaired community whenever they approach you all? Is it blister packages? Is it ScripTalk? What's the most common starter pack, for lack of a better term?
Oh, it's interesting. From when it comes to packaging organization, it's all preference. There's different things. People can try different things every month until they find something that really works for them. When it comes to labeling, we tend to find, it really depends on the individual. If someone has low vision, but is still able to read labels, getting a label in a large font is awesome. If it's someone who relies on a talking, who's losing their vision later in life, and doesn't read Braille, something like ScripTalk or the way tag labels are awesome. We also find that we use a lot of ScripTalk labels for older patients who have dementia, who really don't have even vision issues, but just need to be coached and reminded about how to take their medication and when to take it. And finally, for individuals who are Braille readers, they love the fact that we can put Braille on packaging. And it's not just packaging for the consumer itself, who's the Braille reader. We tend to find that people who are Braille readers, we put Braille on everyone in the household's medication. And that way, regardless of who opens up the medicine cabinet, they can identify whose meds are in there, not just theirs.
That's an interesting point. All right. Rachel, I see you have your hand raised. You can unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a follow-up question on the maintenance drugs. So sometimes those of us, if you take, an everyday medication, some of our insurance companies either require us or give us a benefit to using their mail order pharmacy. So a lot of them have, the couple big Caremark and
Sure.
couple. So, if you go through their mail order, you get a 90-day supply, it's at a reduced price and all of that stuff. How does that come into play with you guys?
That's a good
Are you
question.
more like a 30-day supply type thing, or do the patients still get that benefit?
No, it really is based upon the insurance company and what they dictate to us. For us, there's a financial benefit if we ship a 90, because don't forget, we're paying for the delivery. So I'd rather ship one package every 90 days than 3 packages every 30 days, right? But that being said, a lot of it comes down to the insurance company. Quite often, insurance companies, the reason why they'll say 30 days over 90 days is in the event that they anticipate medication changes. What they don't want to do is say, hey, we're going to ship you 90 days. And then 45 days into it, know that we're changing the doses of all these other ones, and then they have to pay for that again. And so the punchline to that response is, if the insurance company will allow us to ship 90 days and the patient wants 90 days, we'll gladly ship it in 90 days. As far as the costs go, and if they say, it really depends. We work with thousands of insurance companies and they all have their own little angles. More often than not, there's not a financial change if a patient switches to us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and Rachel, you can reach out to me offline if you have more questions about this stuff. And
I
we
think
can hop
those
on
were
a
all
call.
my questions. When we show it to people, sometimes some of the questions are, what's the cost, da, 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 and we couldn't answer that before. So this has been very, very helpful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we still have time for questions if anyone has any, but I'm not going to hold Andy if there's no more. So now is our opportunity to ask any burning questions that we have about this service, or if you have any comments, is this something that you're interested in, or maybe you're waiting on anything before you do this, anything like that. All right, based on the silence, Andy, I am thinking we're gonna wrap up now. So,
All right.
do you have any concluding comments or anything like that?
No, just first of all, thank you very much. I appreciated everyone's questions. Check out our website. You'll, if you sign up for one of our webinars, I'll pass the information on to Sean. You'll get on our mailing list and we'll alert you to everything else. I will pass the mental health summit information on to Sean. And we got everyone be careful with the snow. It's pretty miserable here in Philly. I've heard it's pretty bad in DC too. And yeah, hopefully in 2024, 2025, we'll all have a chance to do this in person too.
Hopefully so. Well, Andy, thank you again for joining us today. This was a really great presentation, and it really is a cool service. So thank you.
Hey, thank you again, everyone. All right, be safe, everyone. Sean, thank you again, and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you.